Hey guys, seems like every month some sort of incident gets released, and there's body cam footage, and there's arguments about it. This is one of those ones where the suspect involved is black. It's unclear what the second officer's ethnicity is because you see it from first person, so you can't really tell. It kind of sounds like 2D from 3D Bot Maker, which is kind of funny to me. But there's actually a lot to learn from this that has absolutely nothing to do with race, and I don't see any type of racial element in this whatsoever. It's an interesting video because mistakes are made on both sides, and it's like the ball keeps passing back and forth between essentially who's doing something that's incorrect. And the point of me making this is I do want to talk about basically we do have a policing issue in terms of the way we train people. We don't train officers to be as precise as they need to be, and mistakes are made. I also wonder if, a big body-sized, clear, bulletproof shield would make things a lot better, because then you don't have to worry about getting dropped while somebody's stepping out of a vehicle, kind of like the at that door when the guy answered the door at 3 a.m. and he was armed because, it's 3 a.m. and then the police shot him and it was wrong. Are there tools that maybe can de-escalate the situation so officers are not as, let's just say they don't have to use lethal force in a split second. They actually can, the other people can, odds are, start shooting first and you're fine. Likewise, there's a very, very interesting social interaction between the officer in first person, who's the superior officer, and this guy who's getting pulled over, who's an Army lieutenant. And you can see the personality clash and the breakdown, and it has a lot to do with the way they communicate. And in this case, although I believe the suspect is suing the police for mistreatment, which he probably does have a case, he did not conduct himself in a manner that was, helpful, to say the least. And I think you'll see why the tensions got as high as they did. First part of this, black SUV being pulled over, large, tinted windows, it's a felony stop. Whether they have the right guy, whether it's whatever, they don't know these things. They're doing a felony stop of a vehicle, so they have their guns out. This is not a routine traffic stop. This is a felony stop. Now, it doesn't matter whether they have the right car, they got the right info. They are under the assumption it is a felony stop. The windows are tinted. They can't see. So I'm just going to start playing this, and I'll pause, and I'll talk to you guys as things occur to kind of let you know, one, what I'm thinking, but two, point out, I think, that are important details that get glossed over in the whirlwind of articles they write about this kind of stuff.
Traffic stop at BP. Going back. Felony traffic stop.
Put your hands out the window!
Felony traffic stop.
Okay, command number one. Driver, roll the window down. Driver, put your hands out the window. I believe it's assumed he did, in fact, roll down the window if he hadn't already rolled down the window. Now, whether he's got his hands high up or low like you see later, that's a little unclear in this moment. But those two instructions, okay, we're fine. And now we're going to enter problem number one.
1836.
Put your hands out the window! Turn the vehicle off! Put your hands out the window!
Okay. That is a problem. Because you've got officers pointing guns at you. And you're being told, let me see your hands, but also do something that causes you to reach back into the vehicle to a place where I can't see your hands. That's a conflicting command. That is a mistake. Now, whether the officers have been trained to say it like that, or if this is just some sort of fluke, I tend to think it's a training thing because he repeats it multiple times, and the other officer does it as well, as you'll see later. How are you supposed to comply with that? Let's forget about whether this guy is conducting himself properly in this traffic stop or not. Doesn't matter. If you're just an average person, what are you supposed to do if the officer tells you, stick your hands out the window, also turn your car off? Well, you do the thing where they can see your hands. That way, they're not going to shoot you. if they don't see your hands and then you are reaching to turn the car off or something, because you remember some cars have that like auto start where the key kind of sits low, so like it's different, you know, like it doesn't always look like you're turning to crank a key. Plus they can't see because the windows are tinted. That command is a huge problem. So basically, this is the score one in the we did have done something wrong on the officer's checkbox right now.
How many occupants?
All units 1013, 804, 803, felony stop.
Just want to point out, this guy's asking dispatch how many occupants because it's the felony stop. I believe they're looking for a group or something. So that's what he's asking. He's not talking to the other officer. He's asking dispatch, who doesn't seem to have given him an answer.
18 Windsor, 1 East
Put
Windsor.
your hands out the window and turn the vehicle off.
There it was again. Put your hands out of the window and turn the vehicle off. That is a very, very, very conflicting command. And even if he had reversed it the other way and said, turn the vehicle off and stick your hands out the window, you have to give somebody the proper exact instructions of how you want this done. Because all they know is you're pointing a gun at them saying, basically, I'm going to shoot you if you do something weird with your hands. Now please do something I can't see with your hands. It's conflicting. It is a problem. You're paralyzed at that point. I do not blame the guy for not turning the car off at that point, because anybody, what are you supposed to do? The way he should have worded it should have been, turn the vehicle off, slowly, move slowly, and then when the vehicle's off, stick your hands out of the window. That would have solved the problem, right? But he didn't do that. So, you know, again, another little checkbox for the, I guess it's the same thing, but he's repeating this mistake. And if you are somebody being pulled over, and you've got guns pointed at you, what are you supposed to do in that situation? It's untenable.
Put your hands out the window.
Come around your side.
See your hands. How many occupants in the vehicle?
There's no point in asking, because at this point, yes, you can ask that kind of question once the person has complied. If he's not complying, I get it. The officer's worried. He can't see into the vehicle, and what is on his mind are how many people are in this car I got to worry about, because the windows are tinted. And there's actually movement in the back seat because there's a dog back there, apparently. But you can't ask somebody you've already issued confusing commands to and expect them to be able to understand and answer. This is, I don't want to say it's a rookie mistake, but it is a communication mistake. And again, at this point, the fault of the driver, who probably seems to have his hands sticking out the window. What do you do in this situation? Because there's no way to remedy this without worrying about, basically, again, not showing your hands to somebody, to the officer, and then, you know, catching a bullet because it looks like you were reaching for something. So this is right now on the officers.
How many occupants are in your vehicle? Open the door slowly and step out. Open the door.
Okay. Open the door slowly and step out. That's a little more straightforward. He's far enough away where this is probably what he should have asked him to do initially. He should have probably said, turn the vehicle off and slowly step out of the vehicle. And not stick your hands out the window or some shit. It should have been, that's what he should have asked him to do. The problem now is that you can now hear, and you might have to go back watch this on your own so you can turn the volume up to hear this video on its own. I was having some audio balance issues, so it might be a little quiet, or it might be really loud. I'm not even sure. He's asking questions. He's not saying, how do I comply? Can I do this? Can I, you know, like just trying to actually listen to the officer. He's asking questions of, like, what's going on. Now is not the time to do that. When you've got an officer, particularly one who's issuing confusing commands to you, that is not the time to ask what is going on. It's the, what do I need to do to get out of this situation, which is comply. What do I do to basically make sure that this guy's not going to shoot him? Instead, he's acting like he's got to know what's happening. Guess what? They don't have to tell you what's happening, and it's not for you to know, because Maybe you're completely innocent and this is all a big mistake. You asking that question doesn't help. Save it for your attorney. You've now caused a problem.
Get out the car! Open the door slowly and get out!
Get out of the car now!
So, as you hear, he yells, "What's going on?" So this other officer, now he's close enough to see what's going on. And this guy here, you hear in first person yell, he's not having any of it. Because this officer here, yeah, he's screwing up in the way he's issuing the commands. But this guy's response being, what's like you have to tell me what's going. No, he's not having any of that. And now this officer is pissed off. And I understand why he's pissed off, because confusing instructions aside, this guy's not interested in following the instructions or figuring out what he needs to do. He's interested in getting, like the reason for this occurring, which he is not entitled to that information at this moment in time. So he's making it much more difficult than it needs to be by acting the way he's acting.
Open the door, get out the car!
Hold still, hold.
All right, so what's happening here is the officer you see in first person is basically flanking around to get a different visual so he can maybe get a better glimpse in the window to see how many occupants are in the car. The other officer, who's a rookie, he's moving up because he thinks, oh, my partner's moving up, or the other officer's moving up, so I should move up a little closer to get a tighter angle to cover him. No, he tells him, stop, hold up, basically wait by the vehicle. And the reason for that is so that if there's an occupant in the car who's going to be shooting at both of them, they have to split their fire and split their attention really far. Also, the other officer is still in cover. You never want to commit to everybody being within the same little line of fire, because then if something does go wrong, it doesn't matter how close you're standing as much as basically the angles in which these things are going down from. And he doesn't want this officer to be really close and then somebody pops up with a shotgun, shoots out the back window, and then now both of them are engaging point blank. One of them's probably incapacitated, if not killed. That's why he's telling him to stop, if people don't understand kind of what's going on here. And that's also why I think this officer's a rookie, because he would have probably known, you stay at the cover until it's time to actually move up, to actually move around. Not a big deal, but just some people were kind of confused. So I thought I'd explain that.
Keep your hands outside the window. Keep your hands outside the window. Get out of the car now.
Get out of the car!
Now.
Okay. Keep your hands outside the window. Now, he technically does, but I don't think either officer can see. Maybe he can, because he might be a little taller than where this camera is. But he's got both hands out the window, but they're low. He should have them up high so you can see the fingers. So note to yourself, if you are in this situation or until you stick the hands out the window, spread those fingers out and raise up, because then, so that they can count, so they can see your fingers and see your hands. If you're down low and you're just technically sticking your hands out the window, they can't see his right shoulder, his right arm. They don't know whether that's the case or not. That wouldn't be a huge deal if he was not asking what's going on still, like he's entitled to know. That is really testing this officer's patience. And it also makes you seem like you're up to no good. Because if you're a felon, you want to know what's going on, because you want to know whether they're basically trying to take you in to prison for the rest of your life, at which point you either gun it or start shooting, or if it's just a regular traffic stop and then you can just, go about your day. You can't ask officers that. It's not, again, save it for the attorney. Save it for the attorney. This is not the time to be asking what's happening. And he should know better. And you should know better. If you're a young man, we're not explained this in school. And I think it's this kind of, I don't know, it's like an entitlement. Like, oh, this is unfair. I'm innocent, therefore I don't have to cooperate. No, life is not fair. And guess what? If this had happened and there was no probable reason to cause for it, and they gave conflicting instructions and he got peppered, that's going to all suck. It really is. But you know what? What's going to make it better? When the fact that you'll be able to get an attorney provided for by the state, and that'll basically, you'll be able to solve that all after the fact. Right now, in the moment, what you got to worry about is not catching a bullet from these police officers, not making this any more difficult than it needs to be. And he's already testing this cop's patience.
Now. Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now.
I'm serving this country and this is how I'm treated.
Yo, what? Guess what? I'm a veteran too. I learned to obey. Get out of the car.
That is the social dynamic where I think this breaks down. That line right there is the reason this officer you see in first person acts the way he does. He is now pissed off. He has been personally insulted by this guy because he basically accused him of like, oh, you know, how dare you treat somebody serving the country like this? Like, he's pulling rank on this officer. Rank doesn't mean anything when you've got a gun pointed at you, period. And for this guy to have the nerve to say that, and also say that to a veteran, that veteran you're seeing the first person perspective on, acting like that is a way to start a bar fight. Like him, officer, NCO, corporal, private, it doesn't matter. You pull that kind of card in a situation that is where you don't literally have the authority to actually, say, like, I'm a soldier and this is why this needs to be done this way, you're going to get punched in the face. This is the kind of thing that immediately starts a fight. This is why people get so upset at stolen valor. This is why military it's a breach of the code of ethics within the military to pull that card in a situation like this. And trust me, veterans do get special treatment from the cops, and so do active military. Not always, but in my experience, particularly when I was up at college, hearing the different stories and meeting the different people, there definitely is a preference, and a lot of that is because the cops themselves are often veterans. And this guy just broke a huge, I guess. It's basically a huge amount of disrespect to this other officer, and you can tell by the way he responds, like, he's not having any of it.
Get out of the car now.
What's going on?
What's going on is you're fixing to ride the lightning, son.
Yeah. What's going on? You're fixing her. Yeah. At this point, you are not entitled to know exactly what's happening or why what's happening is happening. In terms of the greater context, you need to comply. They're telling you to step out of the vehicle. They have their guns pointed at you. They are serious about it. I think this is a taser now he's pulled out at this point, which maybe that might be the ride the lightning. That might actually be what he's talking about. A lot of people think it's like, oh, it means he's gonna get like shot up by like bullets. Well, that's a possibility as well too. But I think it's because he pulls the taser. I guess he says he's gonna tase him. What? You don't get to ask this question. It doesn't matter if you're a lieutenant. It doesn't matter if you're a general or a senator. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're in this situation, this is not the proper way to act. So, ball moves from officers giving confusing commands to this guy being a dipshit.
Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now. Get out of the car.
Sir, just get out the car. Work with us and we'll talk to you. Get out the car.
You received an order. Obey it.
So, something interesting I wanted to point about this. He's right, he's just saying, like, we will talk to you, just you'll have to cooperate. And if you notice this cop, he has his thumb in a weird spot, and he had his at one point he's got his thumb on top of the slide. His finger is not in the trigger well. That's not a shooting posture even. It's pretty clear this guy's being more of a pain in the ass, and the risk has lowered itself. And this officer's not, by his body language, it's clear he's not like waiting for an excuse to pull the trigger. It's a lot of people were reading into things that I just don't think were there. So, he's staring off into space, wondering what he should say or do, and we'll see.
I'm honestly afraid to get out. Can I?
Yeah, you should be. Get out.
What?
Get out.
Yeah, you should be. And that's the whole point, is that they're pointing guns at you and you're acting like this is not a serious situation and they have to give you some sort of explanation. Like, the point is of them pointing the gun at you is you to basically comply, because if you don't, the fear is you get a bullet in you, right? It's not a nice thing, but in a felony traffic stop situation, whether you are a felon or whether this is some sort of big mistake, that is the nature of what's going on. It doesn't matter whether it's fair or not. It doesn't matter whether you're afraid or not. It matters basically you are being called upon for everyone's safety to do something very specific, which is basically just comply with what's going on so that this can get over with. Now, of course, this officer, now you hear in first person, he's not happy that this guy's now using I'm afraid, the afraid excuse when he's already escalated it, If he had said that initially, if he had just pulled him over and he stuck his hands out the window and said, "Officer, I'm too afraid to do anything," that completely changes the context. Instead, it's, I'm going to ask you questions and annoy you and be unreasonable and tell you, pull the veteran card and just be obnoxious. And then when finally they've now come up and the guy's got the taser out and this cop's being more casual, then you're going to say, I'm too afraid to comply. I can see why this officer now is pissed off, because I think anybody would be pissed off.
Get out the car.
Get out now.
I have not committed any crime.
You're being stopped for a traffic violation. You're not cooperating at this point right now. You're under arrest you're being detained, okay? You're being detained for obstruction of justice.
Traffic violation. I do not have to get out the vehicle. You haven't even
Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. He may, in fact, be in the legal right. He may legally not have to get out of his vehicle, correct? Right? And this may be a situation where the officers have basically done something incorrect, or by them demanding coming out of the vehicle, there's some law where they have to have like some sort of warrant or some reason or something. Maybe all that is true, which it's not in this situation because it's a felony traffic stop. It doesn't matter. That can be resolved with your attorney after the fact. Because right now, you're not driving away. They're not going to say, "Oh, well, we can't pull him out of the car." Even if the officers are in the wrong, you got to think about this. You're not a special snowflake. If they're wrong, that is what you have due process for. That's what you have the attorneys for. This is not the situation, especially after pulling all the cards he's pulled already, to then act like, "Oh, well, you guys don't have the authority to do this." Well, you know what gives them the authority to do that? The fact they're pointing a gun at you. That gives them the authority to do that to you. And that's the sad reality of it, And we put the badge on them to let you know that basically there are a certain amount of state responsibilities that follow, including the right to an attorney, when you do what they tell you to do with the gun on. It's like if somebody this could be two random people carjacking him, right? And they're telling him to do it, and he says, "No, it's my car. I don't want to get out." Well, the reason to comply is for the same reason you comply with these officers, is because they are going to shoot you. Now, in that case, somebody trying to do this to you who's not an officer, you fight back, right? But in this case, they have the badge, which means there's a responsibility going on, which means that even if they're wrong, there was at least accountability going on, I mean, especially you see the body cams on them and stuff too. It's like at this point, this officer, when I say officer because he's a lieutenant, he's not unaware of the fact that these two guys are police officers and they do have the authority to do that. He's just not happy that it's happening to him. Dude, it sucks. This is probably a case of where it's a mistake and the felony traffic stop's being conducted because your vehicle matched the description that they were looking for, right? So this is a mistake. Perhaps the guns out immediately is excessive. Perhaps they're in violation of some sort of rule. Possibly. Absolutely. All possibly true. But by him giving them a hard time right now, it's not. What does that solve? What does that solve? It just escalates things further when this would be over and he might be walking away with a fat check because an attorney might be able to say, "Hey, they didn't even have the right to do this, and you did everything, you complied, you didn't cause any problems, and they did this to you. The state might owe you something." The time to ask about that kind of shit is not in the moment when the guns are out. It's silly. It's silly. It's like he's saying he's afraid, but he's like, he must know in the back of his head they're not going to shoot him or not going to do something to him. Because if you really thought you were going to get shot by these police, why would you not comply? Why would you not do everything you possibly can to not give them an excuse to hurt you? But in this case, because he's indignant, he's going to give them a hard time. He knows that they don't want to hurt him, don't want to do anything to him, and that it's legally tedious to escalate the force. And he's using that as leverage to make the situation so much worse than it needs to be.
Really?
Why I'm being stopped?
Really?
Get
Get out of the car now. Get out of the car.
your hands off me.
Get out of the
Get your hands off me.
You know what?
Get your hands off me.
Not a
Get your
problem.
hands off me.
Back up,
I
Daniel.
didn't do anything. Don't do that.
Get your hands off me. I didn't do anything. It doesn't matter. It does not matter if you didn't do anything, right? You know? If you're being basically told you need to step out of the vehicle or you're being arrested, it doesn't matter if you're innocent. You are still responsible for the way you conduct yourself. He thinks he didn't do anything, therefore this shouldn't be happening in the first place. Therefore, I'm going to just not cooperate and deny reality. Guy pulls out a pepper spray at this point, and now he's like, "Oh, don't do that." Why? He's not complying. What does he want? What does he want the officers to do at this point? They have to detain him at this point. And he's like, "Oh yeah, don't touch me." It's like the guy's being obtuse and difficult.
Sir, get out of the car now.
Hey, sir.
Get out of the car now.
Sir, look.
I'm trying to talk
Get out.
to you.
Okay.
I'm trying to
I'm
talk.
gonna talk.
Get out.
Just get out of my
Relax.
car.
Can you please
Get out.
relax? Can
Get
you
out.
please relax?
Get out of the car right now. Now.
This is not how you treat a vet. I'm actively serving this country, and this is how you're gonna treat me.
Back up, Daniel.
I didn't do anything.
Back up.
Whoa, hold on.
Daniel.
What's going? Hold on.
So, when does he decide to pepper spray him? When he pulls the veteran card again. I don't think he necessarily needed to hit him with the pepper spray. I understand why. He actually may be in his legal right to have done that because, guy's not cooperating, door won't be unlocked, blah, 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 all these other things going on. There's a certain amount of, there's like a checklist of things before you're authorized to use force in this situation, which in this case it's or I should say that type of force, not non-lethal pepper spray. That officer makes a decision to spray him in the face with the pepper spray when he plays the veteran active service member card again. And like I said, it's the type of entitlement that'll start a bar fight and have a veteran clocking somebody who's currently serving. That's when he decides to use it. I don't find that uncoincidental. Maybe it does legally line up, but this dude now, who you see in first person, who pepper sprays him, he's now been personally insulted twice by this guy trying to hide behind the flag. And are you surprised you got maced when you pull a card like that? I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I don't understand where this guy thought it was. Maybe because he's an officer and he's used to like people kissing his ass. But I don't know where he thought this was going to go, because especially knowing that officer is a veteran, for him thinking that card is going to do anything but piss the guy off and personally insult him, I don't get it. In fairness, he does keep telling him step out of the vehicle with the hands out of the vehicle. And it's like, how do you do that, right? Should have been a lot more clear with the instructions. I agree with that. The problem is that the guy never says, I am complying, I wish to step out of the vehicle. Yes, officer, yes, let me do this. It's, no, you're going to tell me why. You're going to tell me why. I'm a veteran. Or I'm an active service. Yeah, well. Are we surprised?
You up to?
Get out of the car.
Now, some people are like, why do you get hit multiple times? Well, because the first time you see it just drips, and I don't think he thought that it sprayed. I think that can either has a bum nozzle, or it was already, like, I guess it wasn't shaken up. Like, something was off about it. Maybe it was running empty. The first one, the officer gets it all over his hands, and you can see the drop of it on the actual body camera. So now the officer's covered it, and you'll hear him coughing later in the video. So we wanted to hit him with a decisive amount, and I think that's why he returns. I don't think it's I'm hitting you multiple times to be excessive. I think it's just because he didn't know whether the can was working or not. You can hear him shaking it, and also he got it all over himself. So, pepper spray, the wind blows both ways. People forget about that. So now everybody's pissed off. This is why even if I was this officer, I wouldn't have pepper sprayed him with a pepper spray, because now this is unpleasant for everybody.
Get out of the car now!
That's fucked up.
Get out of the car now!
Sir, just get out the car.
I'm trying to breathe.
Get out of the car now!
That's fucked up. That's really
Okay, so here's an issue where the officers are making a mistake. They're pissed off that he will not step out of the vehicle and that he's asking questions and being annoying. And now he's going, oh, this is effed up. Oh, it's like, yeah, it is effed up. You should have just listened. But now we are in a situation where the suspect, for lack of a better term, he cannot see. He can't see what's happening. And you're telling him, after already hitting him with non-lethal, where his hands were kind of up. Granted, it was, you guys weren't able to pull him out. Now he can't see, and you're telling him to reach down blindly into... He's not going to... You have to tell him very specifically. Use your right hand, unlock the door. Now use your left hand, pull the door open from the outside handles. You have to be very specific about how they're going to do something. Or just say, hey, unlock the door, and then let me see your hands, and then you go open the door yourself, and then worry about the seatbelt and all these other things. It's really tough. They're telling him to step out. Now he's actually in a situation where it's not so simple. He can't just step out because now he can't see, and he's more worried than ever, rightfully so, that now he's going to get hit with something worse than the pepper spray because they've already, the conflict has already escalated. So that one, a point in the column of the victim / suspect here. You guys do need to think about the way you issue these types of instructions. The gist of him stepping out, yes, we understand. Yes, he's not listening. He's a pain in the ass. We understand what you want the end game to do, but you have to tell people exactly, precisely how you wish for them to do that, because it's terrifying, especially if you can't see, to be moving your hands into places where they know you can't see. There is a, for lack of a better term, there's a mistake in the communication here. Not that it should have gotten to this point in the first place.
fucked up.
Yeah, get out of the car and get on the ground now. You're going to get it again.
I don't even want to reach for my seatbelt.
Take your seatbelt off and get out of the car.
Can you please?
Get out of the car now. Listen, take off your seatbelt and get out of the car.
Look, I'm just gonna.
Now, I want to point out this cop here. He's obviously put his weapon away. He kind of knows what's going on, and he's got a look on his face like, okay, well, what do we do? Because this guy can't see, and he does reasonably say, I'm worried about my seatbelt, and I don't want to reach. He's correct to be worried about that, because this is now a scary situation that's escalated. He doesn't know this other officer put his gun away, and the other guy's just holding pepper spray. But again, it's the frustration of, like, when do you take your hand? Like, the officer's telling you to do something where now you're going to be taking your hand out of his vision, and that's terrifying. And what makes it even more terrifying in this case is he can't see anything because he's been pepper sprayed in the eyes. But watch the ball shift back to the other side.
Just please.
You're going to do what you're told. Get out of the car. Take your seatbelt off and get out.
Now, something interesting. When does this unlock happen? Because the other officer tries to unlock it and couldn't unlock it. And the door wouldn't open for him earlier. And I don't see where this guy's hand goes back in to unlock the door. I don't know. He obviously either leaned on it or hit the button and his hand dropped out of frame for a second to unlock the door. I don't know really what happened. That or maybe when the pepper spraying officer was hitting him, he reached in and hit it. I can't tell. But that is an interesting little detail. That somehow the door was unlocked at this point.
Take your seatbelt off.
Look, my hands are out.
Take your seatbelt off and get out of the car.
My hands are out.
Don't reach in there, Daniel. Don't reach in there.
My hands are out. Please.
Okay. Suspect, he's trying to articulate his hands are out and he doesn't want to put his hand down to go hit his seatbelt. Perfectly reasonable. And this rookie officer wants to just reach in and hit the seatbelt himself. The reason the rookie officer is not allowed to do this is, one, the other guy's covered in pepper spray, and this officer's already hacking his lung up, and the worst thing you could have is all three of them covered in pepper spray. And two, by reaching over, you leave yourself extremely vulnerable to the suspect grabbing you, hunching over, and now he's got you, your gun, or he had a knife or something, and now you're in a tussle, and this officer here, there's not much he can do to save you if there is a threat here. So you're not supposed to reach over the suspect and hit the button, hit the seatbelt to release it. And that's why he tells him not to do that. Not out of a sense of maliciousness. It's just out of protocol says, no, don't do that. Now, this guy, this young officer, it seems like he just wanted to get it over with because he doesn't feel threatened. But habit-wise, also, we don't know 100% what the felony issue is, so we don't know what this other officer knows. That's why he's told to back off and not do it himself. Or I should say, not do it for the suspect. That's why that occurs.
Please, look. This is really messed up. My dog is in the back. My dog is choking right now.
So the officer gives him a second when he says he puts his hands up to finish what he's saying. Basically ask, how do you want me to unleash the seatbelt? And immediately the guy goes, all right, well, instead of trying to figure out how I'm going to get my seatbelt off so that I can step out and comply, I'm going to say this is messed up and my dog is coughing. It doesn't matter. It does not matter at this point. And for him now to do that, he's now just further pissed off the officer.
Get out of the car. Take your seatbelt off. What are you, a specialist, corporal? What are you?
I'm a lieutenant.
Lieutenant, get out of the car. Take your seatbelt off and get out of the car. You made this way more difficult than it had to be if you just complied. Get out of the car.
I'm reaching for my seatbelt.
Fine. Take your seatbelt off and get out of the car.
Okay. I'm reaching for my seatbelt. Fine. Obviously, this officer is pissed off and annoyed. But that should have been... That should have happened in the conversation minutes ago. At the beginning of this. This other officer releases these confusing commands, and now he's got his hands out the window, and he's still plugged into his seatbelt, and the door's not... Then I am reaching, how am I going to do something to comply to make this situation better? So, yay, he finally got it. Of course, he says he's a lieutenant with some extra authority. This guy doesn't care. This officer does not care, and guess what? This officer, in terms of military officer, that doesn't matter right this second. It really doesn't. And actually, I will say, in fact, probably this guy's even more pissed off because this is the kind of immatureness you would expect from like a enlisted person who just didn't quite get into the culture, not from somebody who's an officer who should know better.
Straight onto the ground. Straight onto the ground.
Ma'am, is your commanding officer available?
Down. Let's go.
Is your commanding
Let's
officer
go.
available?
Okay. Notice how the officer's patient as he's moving slowly with his eyes thing. He stops for a moment and he's like, "All right, let's go." Then the guy's going to ask, "Oh, well, you're commanding." No, this is not the time to do that. While that would be lovely, it would also be lovely if you knew why you were being pulled over, if you knew what you had supposedly done wrong for them to be pulling guns on you. That's all great and all, but that's the kind of stuff you get worked out after the fact with the attorney, or just after the officers now feel safe because they put you on the ground and they're actually asking you these types of questions so you can figure out what's going on. Not again. He's been pepper sprayed. He's finally got his seatbelt out. He gets his legs out the door, his hands up, and then he's asking for them to, call their superior officers. No, now is not the time for that. And for this guy to think he has any sort of authority to be asking those kind of questions. And I don't mean the authority is in the, he's the citizen and he has the right to actually, know what these things are, know what's going on. Because he does in the macro sense. But in the moment, he's in no position to resist and to be asking the questions here. And the nerve of him to now try to first of all, try to pull rank on this other officer who was a veteran. And then now asking him to see his superior. This officer is not having any of it. It's not any surprise he's as pissed off as he is.
Get on the ground. Get on the ground.
Please talk to
Get
me
on the
about what's
ground
going
now.
on.
Get on the ground or you're getting sprayed again. Get on the ground.
Can you please talk to me about what's
Get on
going
the ground. Get on the ground now.
Can you please talk to me about what's going on?
Please talk to me. stop. They will talk to you. First of all, they technically don't have to. But if you're going to ask those questions, wait until you've done what they've asked you to do. This is not a give and take situation where, they answer a question and then you comply a little. And then they answer another question and you comply a little more. No, you do what you need to do to de-escalate the situation. It's like a snowflake entitlement. And this guy is, for being an officer, this is like military officer, this is embarrassing. And I think that's why this veteran cop is so pissed off. Because just common sense, just respect of cultural norms, respect of this officer who's doing his job. It's just not there. And I kind of get what's going on. So it's weird. It's like it starts off like the officers are giving confusing, conflicting commands. Yes, all right. And you can argue about the whole like, oh, should a felony stop have been conducted like this? That's all these other things. But the fact he is still, after being blinded by the pepper spray, and still demanding questions be answered before he'll kneel to be arrested, or he gets lay down so that he can actually be detained properly. It's infuriating. And I kind of I understand where this pissed off cop's coming from.
Can you please talk to me about what's
Yes, sir.
going on?
You're not.
Can you please talk to me about what's going on? Why am I being treated like this?
Because you're not cooperating. Get on the ground.
Why am I being treated like this? This is really messed up. This is really messed up.
Sir, well, just work with me.
This is fucked up. This is fucked up. This is fucked up. This is fucked up.
And now he's blubbering like a child. I get that this is an emotionally taxing situation, but the reason it was as bad as it was because of this lieutenant's lack of decor, the self-entitlement. I don't know what it is, but this is not the kind of guy I'd have a whole lot of confidence leading troops into battle. If this is the kind of thing that rattles his jimmies, this is it's unbecoming of a soldier. It's unbecoming of a man. That does not absolve the police from the mistakes they have made in this situation. It does not. But seeing this dynamic between this lieutenant who's acting a fool and this veteran police officer who may or may not have been an officer or an NCO or something, we don't know. But seeing that escalate that fast and how pissed off and how personal this guy takes it, because probably if my guess is if he had just stepped out of the vehicle immediately, this other guy, having realized he was in the military and him being a veteran himself, would have addressed him in a certain way. Probably would have called him sir because he's a lieutenant, and would have explained to him as quickly as possible what's going on because he has respect for the uniform and the flag. But you pull the card and you demand it after not listening to simple commands, or I should say not suggesting that you're going to be complying with what the officers are telling you to do, whether the commands were confusing or not. Anyway, you're asking for trouble. You're absolutely. This is the social dynamic that breaks down. It's got nothing to do with race. It's got nothing to do with police and citizens. That's not actually what causes the anger in this situation. It's the guy pulls the veteran card on a veteran. You want to start a bar fight? Pull that kind of shit. And it's shocking that people don't see this. And the Army really has to get its act together and basically enforce a culture among officers that does not end in this type of embarrassing situation. This was an embarrassment. The officers did not conduct themselves amazingly. They didn't, especially when you talk about the verbal command stuff being very confusing. I keep repeating that because that is an extremely important takeaway from this interaction. But what an embarrassment. What an absolute embarrassment for somebody, a uniformed officer, to conduct himself in that manner. And that wasn't even like masculine, I'm a tough guy. That was snowflake, I'm special, this can't be happening to me. That is the worst type of military leader, officer. And if he's going to cry over this after a situation he caused, how on earth are troops under his command going to possibly respect him when they're the ones who are getting shot at? They're not. They're not. He's going to say, oh, it's unfair the enemy outnumbers us. I can just, why is this happening? You have to tell me. None of that matters. And this guy just being a total, like, wimp, I guess, it's got to, I should say, I have to believe that contributed to how the veteran cop acted. Because, man, that's painful. It would have been, this would have been embarrassing to watch for a regular man doing this, you know? I'd have a lot of the same things to say, but I think particularly because he pulled the veteran card on a veteran, or the active military card on a veteran, who then saw him conduct himself this way, he's doubly, basically, you're doubly asking for yourself to be treated roughly. They're going, you know, it's... So that's my take on this. I don't think it's a racial thing. It'll be a footnote. I'm sure it'll be cited without anybody having seen the video that, oh, this is just some situation of Virginia racism. I don't know. Your governor can wear blackface or a KKK robe and be just a despicable person. That's you guys will elect that guy, but then you'll look at a situation like this that isn't so black and white and just immediately assume it's race. It's not race, guys. It's a veteran interacting with a active duty person who is not acting becoming of a soldier. That is what has caused the dynamic here. So interesting, I thought.